Oscar Romero was born in 1917 in a small Salvadoran town called Ciudad Barrios. The son of a telegraph operator, he grew up in simplicity, quiet, shy, and deeply faithful. From the age of 13, he felt a call stronger than anything else, the call to serve God. He entered the seminary, studied in Rome, and in 1942 was ordained a priest. For decades, Romero lived as a humble servant of the church, cautious, conservative, a man who avoided confrontation. But while Romero devoted himself to prayer and parish work, his country was collapsing. El Salvador was ruled by a wealthy elite. The poor toiled as peasants, while the government crushed anyone who dared resist. Protests were silenced with bullets. Unions were outlawed. Priests who defended the poor were branded as enemies. The nation stood on the edge of civil war, and in 1977, Romero was appointed Archbishop of San Salvador. To the ruling elite, he seemed the perfect choice, a bishop who would keep the church silent, but only weeks later, everything changed. On March 12, 1977, Romero's close friend, Father Rutilio Grande, was assassinated by government-backed death squads. Grande had worked among poor farmers, preaching justice, preaching dignity. His murder lit a fire in Romero's soul. At the funeral, before thousands, his voice trembled with grief, but his silence was gone forever. From then on, every Sunday, his sermons were broadcast across the nation. People huddled around radios, their only source of truth. Week after week, he named the murdered. He denounced torture, repression, injustice, and he called soldiers to disobey immoral orders. In the name of God and in the name of this suffering people, I beg you, I implore you, I order you, stop the repression. To the poor, he was hope. To the powerful, he was dangerous. And the threats grew louder. On March the 24th, 1980, Archbishop Romero stood at the altar of a hospital chapel, celebrating Mass. As he lifted the chalice, a single shot rang out. The bullet pierced his heart. The Archbishop fell beside the altar, giving his life for the people he defended. At his funeral, 100,000 mourners filled the streets. The government opened fire on the crowd, turning a mass into a massacre. El Salvador plunged into 12 years of civil war, but Romero's voice did not die. In 2018, the Catholic Church declared him a saint and martyr, a symbol for all who struggle for justice and dignity. Oscar Romero lived as a humble priest and died as a fearless prophet. He once said, "If they kill me, I will rise again in the Salvadoran people." And today, his spirit still rises, wherever voices are silenced and wherever the poor cry out for justice.
Brian, Pope Francis calls Archbishop Oscar Romero a martyr for the faith. He says since his death, though, Romero's been martyred over and over again by people who slander his name. The Holy Father is setting the record straight. Archbishop Oscar Romero speaking out against the violence in his native El Salvador. This is how millions remember the man Pope Francis calls a good pastor, full of love for God. The Holy Father recently praised Blessed Romero while meeting with pilgrims from El Salvador. The Pope saying Romero lived the Beatitudes. Blessed Romero was assassinated in 1980 while celebrating Mass in a hospital chapel, one day after calling on the government to end their violation of human rights against the population.
It is now 34 years later, pretty clear that he was assassinated by a right-wing death squad, and that his sermon was in some ways the final straw.
Jeff Thale has studied human rights issues in El Salvador for decades. Thale says tensions couldn't have been higher when Romero was killed. The country's civil war, which started in 1979, pitted the military-led government against left-wing guerrilla groups. Thousands who spoke out against the government on immigration and land reform issues simply disappeared. Thale says for years, Archbishop Romero was focused on being a pastor, not wanting to get involved in politics. But after seeing many innocent people die in El Salvador, he felt compelled to speak out.
Archbishop Romero was not there calling for revolution or whatever. Archbishop Romero was calling for respect for human rights and for attention to the concerns of the poor.
Leonor del Carmen Chacon and her husband were married by Romero in 1963. She still has lots of keepsakes.
I
feel happy. I feel proud that we were friends with a saint, because for us, he was a saint from the beginning. For us, he was a humble saint.
For Leonor and many Central Americans, Romero will always be remembered as a voice for the voiceless. In February, Pope Francis formally recognized Romero as a martyr, which cleared the way for him to be beatified in May. Romero still needs a miracle in order to be declared a saint.
Los Angeles is currently one of the 7 areas with the highest rates of gentrification globally, with low-income Latinos being the most impacted by this issue. Gentrification stems from national, social, and economic trends throughout the years. Approximately 3/4 of low-income immigrants are more likely to pay unfair, high rents and live in overcrowded areas. When going over the statistics of areas of gentrification in Los Angeles, the list shows that lower and middle-income people of color and immigrants are suffering the worst in LA's most gentrified areas. In a Harvard study, researchers found that gentrified neighborhoods were typically composed of mainly Latino households. It is also stated that, in addition to their statistical proof, there is anecdotal evidence that Latino neighborhoods are viewed as more desirable to gentrifiers. Desirability by gentrifiers and the majority of Latino immigrants willing to pay higher rents to live in Los Angeles may be factors on why Latino neighborhoods have the highest levels of gentrification in the area. However, as Latinos are unable to keep up with the skyrocketing rents, they are forced to move out. Gentrification in LA Latino-dominant neighborhoods kills culture and representation, especially in schools and other public areas. Various LA areas that were once filled with cultural aspects and representation for Latinos are currently gentrified or undergoing the process of gentrification. Many people who had once lived in an area or had gone to certain schools and other public works are pushed out as white individuals move in. To gentrify is still used today, and lower-income Latinos are continuously forced to leave their homes and communities through each generation. Even though this is a recurring issue, we can help change for the future. By working together and fighting against gentrification through protests and changes, the problem may be able to be resolved. The dark history between past instances of gentrification should be expressed and taken responsibility for, rather than simply ignored and forgotten. Currently, movements such as gentrification help to keep Latino culture and representation alive in gentrified areas, or areas currently undergoing gentrification by protesting culturally important areas at risk of being taken down.